We're the O'Loughlin brothers. I'm Father Pat.
I'm Father Ben, and this is the Vocation Show.
So let's get going.
Let's get going. Episode 1.
Episode 1.
You just stayed here at home, not home, but like Atlanta home, and I flew all the way down from Philadelphia.
From Philly, yeah.
Yeah, to get down here and just like talk vocation shop with my little brother who followed in my footsteps. This is like so awesome. I love this.
This is true. There were footsteps, and I followed after the footsteps were made.
There's a but coming though. He never acknowledges that like you never acknowledge that for our listeners that, those footsteps were mine, it's like the Lord's footsteps.
Maybe it's going to come out. Maybe you're going to hear something that you had some like amazing impact in my life that you never, you probably dreamed about it before, but that I actually never shared. It could come out in these conversations.
So if you let it slip.
Yeah, it could be a huge affirmation for you.
It could be. It was like, I actually did impact my brother's life positively.
I mean, we're talking about vocations, and it's important not just to find your vocation, but to continue in your vocation. So this could be huge for you.
I'll just keep being like my vocation to be your older brother. That's the deal,
It is actually really neat to have a brother in the same state in life, the same vocation in the Legion, right? It's something really cool. And actually, there are a lot of brother pairs in the Legion too.
We were on our spiritual exercises together.
Oh yeah, last year.
And they were silent. They were mostly silent. But like that campfire every night, we were just like sharing our spiritual vibes and experiences. And
yeah, no, that was really
powerful.
Really neat. At the end of each day, getting together around the fire. And next year, let's go back.
Let's do it again. But that's next year. Right now, we are on a podcast about the vocation.
Yeah.
And this episode is, what is a vocation?
What do I get out of it? Actually, when I read that question, I heard it. How do I get out of it? It's actually, what do I?
That would actually make a great podcast. Like we would rack up the views. Like, how do I get out of my vocation? It's like blink twice. But this is not about toxic relationships. This is about that power relationship with the Lord.
And vocation, I think, I hear this all the time. When you're talking about vocations, most people really think when you say the word vocation, they're thinking about priesthood, consecrated life.
Yeah.
But I think we got to dig into that right now just to see, okay, what are we really talking about when we say the word vocation?
Yeah.
And I know you have some great insights on that. Earlier.
Well, yeah, it was like, because there's a lot of times we talk about like the big V vocation is like the priesthood, or the religious life. I'm called to be a sister or a monk or whatever it is. But if you go to like Second Vatican Council, like vocations for our here and now in this moment, the big V vocation is actually the vocation of holiness.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just that it's the vocation of holiness that everyone's called to, because that's kind of like the point of God creating us, because he wants us to be with him forever in heaven and happiness and like the, all of that. But it's when you're baptized and you're like united to God in his family, that you live that in 3 different ways. And so I think for me, the vocations are the 3 paths to live that just call to holiness, which is the priestly life, the call to consecrated life, and the call to lay life. Mm-hmm. And how those 3 things they're different, they're complementary, they're very different paths, but there's 3 paths that are equally valid for holiness. And God is going to call you, to the one that he has dreamed about for you. Like when he was there, like, with the clay, before all time, sort of like digging into that, like what was he thinking about when he was doing that?
What he thought of you, because he actually thought of each of us.
Very well. So it's also like this personal, it's not like way back at the beginning of time, God decided that you were priest or bust, or sister or bust. It's that right now, because for him everything is now. Right now, from his point of view, he's creating you. Right now, he's calling you, inviting you.
Yeah, I remember like when I was a kid, discerning and trying to figure out what God wanted from me, right? It was actually a really motivating question. Like, what has God called me to from all eternity? I remember, because it's like really challenging. It makes you think big, like the existential questions. And it's true, God calls us from all eternity, but it's a little bit more from his perspective because he's in eternity and we're not. So it's like a really, whoa,
Definitely are not.
definitely not yet.
I feel that every day, real sorority and eternity, you're hoping eternity.
You're getting closer than me, that's for sure. I'm still going strong. But eternity, if you think about it, eternity is something only God experiences. And so we actually never, like that question, it doesn't really, I've never seen it actually in my concrete, like living out of my vocation and figuring it out. It doesn't really apply to me so much. What does God call me from all eternity? I mean, I know he has a plan, but I only ever see the plan, like you said, in the here and now. And so I like discern it in the daily circumstances of concrete life.
Well, that's what's real.
Yeah.
Here and now, like this comfy chair is real. The comfy chair I sat in yesterday is no longer, I mean, it's real wherever it is, it's not like it's gone, but it's not real for me. It's a memory. I can only enjoy a comfy chair here and now.
Exactly.
So God can only call you here and now. You can only listen to his invitation here and now, like vocation, which, Latin for calling. He can only call you here and now. He can't call you yesterday because yesterday isn't here anymore. Tomorrow doesn't exist,
Never will exist.
And actually he's calling all the time. And all the way into like, what are we going to do today? God has invitations, on that lower level, like right here, right now, this second, this minute, that are also vocations. We're getting into like, not just like lowercase vocation, but like, sort of minuscule, little known deal, footnote vocations, all the way up from the big V all caps vocation. What people don't realize is that actually, when you're called to the priestly vocation or the consecrated vocation, you're actually discerning out of the lay vocation. Because, you are living your lay vocation. You're in the world, living your life.
We start in the lay.
We start in the lay vocation, So we discerned out, of seminary, if you will, in lay life. Because everyone starts, even when you're a little kid, like there's this part of the world that you have not like control or dominion, but like influence over. You have your friends, you have your class, there's this area of your life that you can influence and make more like what God wanted this world to be. And that's like I always tell people, that's like, you're living your lay vocation to transform this world into kingdom. When someone is gone and they have an open field and they build a church, suddenly that open field now helps people to connect with God in a way that it didn't before. It's become more Christ's kingdom. So we're all doing that.
Yeah.
And that's the lay vocation, according to Vatican II.
Kind of just going a little more in there. We're talking about our vocation in Regnum Christi, and as a specific way of, there's a lot of lay members of Regnum Christi. And it's almost like a hyper focus on the kingdom. That's how I always explain it, right? When you're living in the world, you have a lot of influence, a lot of relationships. And so your sphere of influence, when Christ becomes king in your own life, then you actually make him king in your sphere of influence too, naturally. And that's why it's not even just about like doing a ton of things and apostle and all that stuff, but it's about actually just having Christ truly king in your life, and then he becomes king in your whole sphere of influence, right? So
yeah, because you want him to reign because he's boss.
Yeah,
like in all the meanings of boss, like if there's a goat, it's him. And when you learn his heart and what the desires of his heart are and what he wants to happen for everybody, and you see that dream, you spark with it.
Yeah. And going back, so vocation.
The vocation.
So yeah, we were like, we're gonna go all over it. But so I think we say, what is vocation? We're human beings, right? So we're called into life actually by God.
First vocation exists,
right?
You don't have a choice on that one. You can't say yay or nay. It just happens.
And there are certain things like marriage, for instance. I mean, even just there's like the natural institution of marriage. And so in as much as we exist in a certain, we're called to like figure out, okay, how are we going to continue? Like, what are we called to be with, for the rest of our life, right?
Yeah.
So those things happen. And then boom, you're baptized. So now suddenly you have this vocation to holiness. And that vocation to holiness is something that is discerned in like concrete circumstances every day. There's all these, your whole day is a vocation, a calling from the Lord to be holy.
Yeah. And it's not just like to that point before we go on, because I think that's really important. It's not like the vocation to It's not like God wants you to be holy and be with him. That's like God wants that for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's not a vocation yet, because it's not like God calls you. It's like the Uncle Sam posters. Uncle Sam wants you. The vocation is when God steps into your life, rips open the fabric of reality and says, hey, I want you. Name, middle name, first, last name, nicknames, good nicknames, not the bad nicknames, because he's maybe also embarrassing nicknames because God knows all that stuff about you.
Hey, my disc golf alias is Fat Pat. Right?
Yeah.
Fat, short for father. But you probably don't even have a disc golf alias, do you?
No. I just win.
Ooh, what last game? What happened last game?
All right. Hole in one, baby. You got a hole in one, but we didn't finish. So anyway. So I think that's that universal call to holiness that starts. It's universal, but it's not generic because it's so personal. And that happens at your baptism. And then that tees it up for everything to flow into. What is God actually imagining that call looking like for you?
Yeah, because you have an experience. We each have an experience of being called, which you might not have a baptism when you're a little kid, but it comes. It comes in life. I think that's my fault.
That is. It's okay. That's why we have fade in and fade out.
Yeah. That was a call, That was a call I just ignored.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, guy calling. So great, let's get back to vocation actually. So like what we said, I think the first thing is you're born, you exist, you're a human being, right?
Yeah.
You're called into
existence.
Call you.
You don't have a choice on that one. It's like, like it or not, I'm calling you.
Yeah.
Since you're nothing, you can't say no to that one.
And then you were human beings. And so for all of us, right, there's like just the natural institution of marriage, which all of us, in a certain sense, are called to. And since if you're a human being, you're called to love, socialize, and to profit.
Yeah, that's an important vocation for, all of us.
Very important.
And it's not just like mammal level vocation, you are called to continue on the species, but because we're people, because we have that capacity for communion, it then becomes something that's much more powerful, so much more, infinitely more powerful. I'd say that you're called to give yourself to completely to a person who's unworthy of that gift. You're going to do it imperfectly because you're not God, but you're trying to do that unconditionally. But that's like everyone everywhere. That's what it means to be human.
And then something special happens when you're touched by grace. And we're talking about the sacrament of marriage, but that comes after.
Yeah.
So you're born, then what happens? You get baptized. And at the moment of baptism comes this calling, this vocation to holiness.
Yeah.
Being with the Lord, being with God, being united to him. And maybe when we're talking about baptism too, it's our life in Christ, in Jesus Christ. And so I think that's any calling to holiness is always going to be a call to relationship with Jesus Christ. And that gets really interesting when you start looking at, the different kinds of callings the Lord makes to us. But it's, that's what we do every day. Like where is the Lord in my life and how am I following him?
Yeah. And it's not a holiness meter. Holiness isn't a thing, it's like,
It's a relationship.
yeah. It's not like God's giving you more and more holiness and you've got like more or less in your tank.
If they say something grace, grace isn't a thing. Grace is relational, right?
Yeah. So it's like holiness is you in relationship with God. Now there can be ebbs and flows, and it's almost like your holiness can be healthier or like stronger or weaker, which I found like explaining to people in spiritual direction and the prayer life. It's like almost easier to grasp that side of it than to imagine holiness as this gold coins that I'm amassing, at the risk, and suddenly I could lose all of them, because a relationship, no matter what happens, there's a story there, and that story has a past. It does have a present, and that present can be amazing. That present can be hard. That present could be tragic, but it has a past that gives it a context. This is my relationship with God. And my friendship with him is in love for me, and it has a future.
Yeah, it's family. When you're baptized into the family of God. Jesus Christ becomes our brother, And sometimes, like when you're a little kid, like us, I remember being beat up and all this stuff when I was a kid, traumatized, almost had to work through a lot of different...
Yeah, there were some neighbors.
A lot of different things, But we were always in relationship. We're always brothers, and now it's a lot better.
Well, and then the Lord, no matter how life beats you up, the Lord is, he's the expert at making plan B more fruitful than plan A.
Oh yeah.
In your life. So he can always bring good out of anything that happens to us, even like repressed childhood traumas that I'm getting vibes that.
I mean, older brother's always kind of like, yeah, it always brings good out of bad things that happen, right? It's that's an older brother thing. But the younger brothers, we're survivors. We believe it. We actually know it. Mm-hmm. Been there, done that.
Surviving in the shadow.
Surviving in the shadows,
Yeah.
bringing it to the light. You know, that's what we're gonna do. These episodes, we're gonna bring it all to the light.
Bring it all to the light.
So now, next step, right? Existence, vocation to holiness through our baptism. Then things come up in our life, like there are different stages of our life, and you could say like there's different states of life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we're talking about vocation, I might call it like you're talking about a state. You are talking about it, vocation to a state in life. The fact is, when we're baptized, we're already in a state of life, so we start there.
Oh yeah, you start in one of like when Lumen Gentium, talks about ways that you live that call to holiness was universal because God's calling everyone and inviting everyone to that relationship with Him, but it's also very personal. But it does sort of follow 3 different paths that are different ways to live to respond to that same call that are tailored to you and the gifts that God and talents that God has given you.
Yeah.
Actually, we all start in lay life.
Yeah, they were called.
Yeah, we're the ones who discerned out of lay life. Like we just didn't make it in seminary, lay life seminary. Yeah, exactly. And they like told us, hey, actually, this isn't your path. You need to look elsewhere. So we packed our bags and like
Left home.
left home and went to a different vocation. So, but that's a really like that lay life is just such a powerful, vocation in and of itself. And I think that's where you have to start when we're talking about vocation. Because that's where that call to holiness is going to become a call to another level of vocation, which is what is God inviting you to? Where is He inviting you to live that relationship with Him? And how is that relationship with Him going to just spill over in all of its abundance into the lives of all of the other people that you're going to touch in your, 70, 80, 90,
Bible years, 80 for those.
80 for those who are strong, so we're like live strong, After 80, I'm more like blaze of glory, let's go to heaven, But, if the Lord gives us more, it's good.
Yeah, I think, I totally agree with that. It's, we all each have such a person, it's a personal relationship with the Lord. It's the Lord, it's us and Him. Yeah. And so whenever we talk about even like categorizations of like, states in life and stuff, you have a very personal vocation that our Lord is calling you to.
And I think that's what the listeners, they're like, let's get to the moment of like what all the listeners are thinking vocation moment is like, hey, when the Lord is calling me, like, how do I decide?
Yeah.
I mean, if the Lord calls, say yeah.
Say yes.
We'll see you next time.